All right, we have Jeff Nadu back on. Jeff, how have you been?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good, doing good. So tell us about your new show on Pixwise.
Yeah, just taking a look at the card each day. It's really just throughout the month of March, doing a lot of college basketball talk, and we don't have college basketball. We'll do a little NBA, but it's mostly just basketball. Kind of wetting the whistle each day, going through the games, going through the different big days of the early March, and then getting into the Sweet 16 and getting into the Elite Eight, and it's nice to have.
So do you do much baseball?
I bet baseball. I just for fun. I mean, on a daily basis. I don't. I handicap it. It's just like any other sport for me.
Okay, okay, good to know. So let's just get into this tournament. To start off, I think I saw a tweet from you. I'm not sure, but personally, I hated this Friday to Monday schedule of the NCAA tournament. What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it. It is what it is. I mean, it's basketball nonetheless. Friday, Saturday, Sunday was normal, but throwing in a Monday slate definitely was odd. It just didn't feel right. I guess it's weird watching basketball. I know people love basketball, but on a Monday it's weird.
Mhm.
And there was a kind of an uneasy feeling. There was that terrible shooting in Colorado, and then the Buffaloes played that night. It was just kind of a weird dynamic. I feel like anytime there's a mass shooting or something, it's kind of an uneasy night. It's grief. It's kind of scary, really. I guess, and I don't know. There was something weird about that night to me. I didn't. The games weren't particularly good either. So
Mhm.
I'd prefer we just go back to the normal schedule.
So who did you find most disappointing over the first two rounds?
Well, Texas for sure. I mean, Texas
Mhm.
was my original pick, one of my picks to win the whole thing, and I had a future on them. I thought they were really going to kind of take the bull by the horns, if you will, and no pun intended, and get it done. I thought they had a lot of length. The guard play was great. I thought Shock had really come into his own, but I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't really trust him much anymore. Now there's going to be a mass exodus as far as players declaring, and Texas has some real question marks going forward. Do they hold on to Shaka Smart? What do you do now? So they go from obviously the lure of winning the Big 12 to losing in the first round to Abilene Christian. Not great.
Were you disappointed by Illinois?
No, I was not. I thought when I saw the draw, I kind of had pegged Loyola to beat them. I think the Big Ten as a whole was pretty kind of overvalued all year. I think it was kind of just looked at as, and it was a good conference. It was just looked at really, really good because the Big 12, was good, and then really everyone else was average. The Big East, the
Mhm.
ACC, the SEC. There was a lot of average conferences this year, so I think it made it look a lot better than it was. Illinois looked, they just didn't get a great matchup. It was a rough matchup against Loyola.
So you were extremely high on Loyola Chicago even before the year started. Do you see them making the Final Four?
I think they have a great matchup for sure. You can't get much better from a matchup standpoint than Oregon State, Houston, and or Syracuse. They're all good teams, but I think Loyola's can win all three of those matchups from whoever they play. I think they get to the Final Four. I think it's the best matchup of the brackets. I wouldn't want to be in Baylor or Gonzaga's, and I sure as I wouldn't want to be up against Florida State, Michigan, and Alabama. So yeah, I think they have a really good bracket. I remember when the brackets came out. My colleague Donnie Rightside made a comment that he thought the bracket was really rough for Loyola, and I kind of said back like I don't see what you're talking about. I think it's a great draw for them, and it ended up being one. So I'm pretty happy about it.
Do you see anybody beating Gonzaga?
Uh, I think someone could beat Gonzaga. I think it will probably take until we get to the final game, but I'm willing to believe that in the bottom bracket, Florida State, Alabama, Michigan, I think they could all beat Gonzaga. I still think Oregon or USC will give them a great game, but yeah, I think it'll be a tough go of it for them, but I think ultimately they'll win. They've been the best team all year, and um, you know, I think for me, I'm just kind of hoping that it's not Gonzaga Baylor, because I have some sort of connection as far as a future with the rest of the teams. But if it shakes out Gonzaga Baylor, which I'm sure it will, I won't be too happy. But yeah, I think they'll get games from teams if they can ultimately. You'd have to play a perfect game to beat them, but this tournament's been nutty. The tournaments are always nutty, so who knows what will happen.
Do you think Oral Roberts can beat Arkansas?
No, I don't. I think Arkansas will cover the number. I don't think it'll be close. When you look at this game, it's kind of interesting because both these teams already played this season. Back on December 20th, Arkansas was actually down 10 at the half. And if you go back and look at the tape, and a colleague of mine that I really respect, Jordan Sperber, he runs Hoop Vision. He kind of does these schematic breakdowns of teams, and he kind of showed the adjustments that Arkansas made in the second half in basically pulling Connor Vanover out of the game and inserting Justin Smith into the game. And they really shut down Oral Roberts. Now, keep in mind as well in that game, Max Asmus only had 11 points. He had just probably one of the worst games of the season. So when you look at Arkansas, I think they're a pretty good matchup. I think they know how to guard Oral Roberts. And I think we've seen time and time again that Oral Roberts can't necessarily stop their opponent. I think this is where it ends for them. I think Arkansas will be on the front foot, and I think they'll take care of business and win 85-69 or something.
Another high line this weekend is Gonzaga Creighton. Is that too high?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's tough to get bet Gonzaga games just because they're always kind of wildly high. But you look at the fact that Oklahoma was a 14-point dog, and you're giving Creighton 30. I think it's ultimately, if I have to take it, I'd probably lean towards Creighton. I think you can make the case Zagorowski is the best player on the court. Offensively, Creighton's always really good, and they don't turn it over, which is huge. There's three kind of things you want to look at when you back an underdog. Can they not turn the ball over, which that would be a check for Creighton. They make threes. They're a good 2-point offense. They don't make their free throws. They're going to have to make sure they knock some free throws down. But Creighton's been a lot better this year because defensively they've improved. This is the top 35 defense, which is kind of unheard of for them. So I think they have what it takes to hang around. I mean, starting five is pretty good for Creighton. So I think they'll hang around for a while.
So what do you make of this Syracuse team? Because I don't know how it happens. Just every year, these coaches act like they've never seen. I guess they haven't technically, but they don't prepare for this 2-3 zone ever. It feels.
I'm not sure it's that they don't prepare for it. I just think it's Jim Boeheim's a great coach. His teams are always prepared. His teams are always ready to go. And when you look at Syracuse, they've San Diego State did nothing to stop Buddy Boeheim. West Virginia kind of did, but I don't think West Virginia did anything wrong. I mean, they shot the ball well, which is what you need to do against the zone. They just kind of ran out of time. I mean, they were winning with 9 minutes to go. Syracuse just has Buddy Boeheim, and West Virginia doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, I think right now we have to look at it and say, Buddy Boeheim might be the best player in this tournament. If you could tell me a player playing better than him, I'd like to hear it. I mean, the kid's a tough guy to root for because he's, the coach's son and all, but I mean, he gets the job done. No one can stop him.
I mean, he's making himself a name for the league, kind of like that Duncan Robinson type.
Yeah, he's impressive. He's really done a nice job. He'll find a way into the league, and until a team can stop him. I think obviously this week's interesting because coaches have a week to prepare for these games. It's not you can make money sometimes on that 32-16 game because it's there's very limited time off. It's a day, so you can kind of grab matchups. This week you have a ton of time to prepare. So Arkansas has time to prepare. Syracuse has time to prepare. All these teams have adjustments they can make. So
speaking of time to prepare, I mean, there's not much better coach than Jay Wright in the country. Do you see Villanova covering +7 against Baylor?
I'm not sure. I'm not so sure they do. I think Baylor's just kind of wear them down from the guard position. No Gillespie hurts. He kind of stabilizes you, gives you that veteran presence at the guard, the point guard. We know that Baylor has two of the best guards in the country, and I think this is where it kind of all comes to an end. I don't always want to put anything by Jay Wright. He's a great coach, but not having a guy like Gillespie, if he's in there, I think they have an opportunity to beat Villanova, but he's not in there. And, I think Baylor can match up with a guy like Robinson Earl. And, ultimately without Gillespie, I haven't loved Villanova. They've gotten lucky because, they got Winthrop, and then they were lucky to get North Texas. I think Purdue could have been kind of an interesting matchup. So, yeah, I think this is where Baylor goes down and beats Villanova, probably beats them, kind of how Wisconsin lost to Baylor. Wisconsin had kind of lucked out to be there, and then Baylor just came in and showed them what's up and beat them by 13. I think it's a double-digit win for Baylor.
Does UCLA's run end against Bama?
You'd have to think. So, sure. I mean, I give Mick Cronin a lot of credit. I mean, he's gotten this team to really buy in. And remember, I mean, they've been without Jalen Hill, Chris Smith. I mean, they're their best players. It's been not a ragtag group, but a group that, aren't the best that UCLA have. Juzang's played at a high level. They've played 3 games. Everyone else has played 2 for the most part. So, yeah, you give Mick Cronin a lot of credit. It's going to take a great performance, and he's got time to prepare for it. But, Alabama's a different animal. UCLA is going to want to slow this game down to a screeching halt, and, they're going to have to make some threes. And that's something they can do. Wouldn't surprise me if UCLA win, because Alabama is at times a little streaky, but it's a hard thing to step in front of. I know that.
So this is probably the marquee game of the weekend, Florida State, Michigan. What do you like in this one?
I lean on Florida State here. I know Michigan's obviously a really smart team. They're always high basketball IQ, and Florida State has the issues at times with turnovers and just boneheaded plays. But I think they have a body for Dickinson, multiple bodies for Dickinson down low. They're a hulking, huge team. They do turn it over, but Michigan doesn't really force turnovers. They're not a team that really gets up in your grill and makes you, kind of hold on to the ball. They don't really do that. Florida State, I think, is undervalued defensively. And I think this is the game that they really miss Livers in. So short and sweet, I feel like Florida State is kind of a tough matchup for Michigan. I lean with the Seminoles.
So who do you think the Final Four will be?
I'll go Loyola. I'll go Baylor. I'll go Gonzaga, and I'll go Alabama.
Okay, I agree with that.
So I think there's not a ton of teams to pick from, but
exactly.
Yeah, that would I'd be surprised if it weren't that.
Would you be surprised if Arkansas made it?
I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas made it. I think they're kind of an interesting team, but I think Baylor just kind of wears them down just with better athletes and better players overall. There's something about Arkansas that kind of rub you the wrong way sometimes. They don't necessarily seem to care or be kind of engaged the whole game, but no, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Arkansas is a good, long, athletic team. I wouldn't be surprised, no.
Do you like Eric Musselman?
I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite coaches, no. He's done a nice job for the most part. Do I think he's a great X and O coach? Not really. He's a great motivator, and that's partly part of college basketball. But and he'll definitely get a lot of kids to come there and play. But do I think he's Mark Few or Chris Beard or something like that? No, I don't. I think he's a good motivator.
So let's transition to the NBA. I heard on your show today that you would take Kyle Lowry over Ben Simmons. Why?
Well, I didn't say I would take him over him. I would like him to be added to the team. I don't want him over Ben Simmons. I would just prefer to move Ben to a different position. I think he's more, kind of dynamic at the 3 or 4. And I want a pure point guard leading the role. I want a guy that can defend. I want a tough blue-collar point guard that's going to involve the team the way they need to be involved. Not that Ben Simmons can't, but Kyle Lowry can pull up and hit a shot. He can make threes. He can be a little bit more dynamic than Ben Simmons is. It's not that I don't want Ben Simmons. I just would prefer that Kyle Lowry is the pure point guard.
Do you see the Sixers beating the Nets if they come down to it in the playoffs?
With this current team, no, I don't. I think the Sixers still are without kind of that guy, that guy at the end of the game that can get you a bucket. The guy that the Jimmy Butler type. Mm-hmm. Is it Danny Green? No. Is it Tobias Harris? I don't think it is. I guess he could be it, but he's not ideal. I don't want him as my number one or two option. Ben Simmons is not him because he's too. You've seen teams take him out of games late. And Joel Embiid is a back to the basket kind of center for the most part. So I need a shot creator. I think it could be Kyle Lowry.
Mm-hmm. So before we go, last time we got into the Eagles. Since then, Carson Wentz is now in the Colts, which we both said was going to happen. How do you feel about the
Mm-hmm.
Eagles going into this draft?
Uh, how do I feel? Unsure. I feel like I don't trust this GM. I haven't ever trusted this GM. He's painted them into corners many times. He's failed and chosen bad players a lot of times. And to be really honest, it's hard to screw up what you have in front of you. You're going to have the opportunity to take a player that is going to change the landscape of your franchise. Now, I will say, and I've been on record as when you look at this depth chart, I think if you can make some really shrewd draft moves and bring in the right guys, I think there's a semblance here of a decent team. If Jalen Hurts can obviously play like we think he is, offensive line is going to be fully healthy. It's one of the best in the league when fully healthy. If you can add yourself a Jamar Chase on this offensive team on the outside, or you can add a Micah Parsons in the middle of that defense, there's a lot to be kind of excited with down the road. They have 8 picks, and they need to make every pick count. They need to succinctly pick players that are going to come in and play and make waves in this team, because too many times they have players that do not contribute. And they really, especially with the fact that they don't have any money this year to buy any players, the draft is that much more important. And this is a city that, whether it's the Sixers or the Eagles, they don't draft well. They never have. And the Eagles need to start hitting on talent. It's just that simple.
Who would you be disappointed if they drafted?
Disappointed. To be really honest, I don't think there's a player. I mean, at 6, I don't, unless it's like someone way off the beaten path. I'll tell you a player I wouldn't want to see drafted. It's not that I don't like the player. I think they just have so many needs that I don't think an offensive lineman is important. I think they actually have pretty good depth at those positions, and I think when healthy, they're really good. Ultimately, if it's a cornerback and it's Surtain, I wouldn't hate that. I don't hate Parsons. I obviously like Chase and those guys. I wouldn't be mad if they took a quarterback. I don't know how important a quarterback is right now, in my opinion, but I need to see Parsons or Chase or receiver or someone like that. It's not that difficult, Eagles. Just don't screw it up.
What about Joe Flacco?
Well, look, I think, Flacco's a move that they needed to make. It's a little rich. I mean, giving Joe Flacco $4 million is kind of crazy. But they've been in the habit of overpaying for backup quarterbacks for a while. I don't think Joe Flacco means much of anything to me on this team, because if Joe Flacco has to go into a game, it means that the Eagles aren't playing well and Jalen Hurts is either injured or sucking. So it's really kind of a useless position. I would have went more along the lines of, and I made this clear, I wouldn't have minded, if you're going to spend money on a quarterback, go get Jameis Winston. Like, I would love to have him here. Like, I would love a renaissance like Michael Vick had. But they believe in Hurts, and it's crazy where we are a year and a half after they take him. Like, he's the starting quarterback of this team, which if you'd have told me that when they drafted him, I'd have told you you're crazy, because they had just given so much to Carson Wentz. But the Carson Wentz end was really sad, frankly. I mean, they quickly just moved on. And Joe Flacco doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, I get why they have to do it, but it's kind of a lot of money to give to him.
Do you see Carson Wentz playing huge for the Colts?
I think, I don't know how he can. I think it's a great situation. He obviously has a great relationship with Frank Reich. When you look at this depth chart, I've been on record as saying I think they're the best offensive line in the NFL. I think Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Marlon Mack are really up-and-coming triumvirate in the backfield. You just get T.Y. Hilton to come back, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal, nice receiving core. Who knows what they do this year? Maybe they attack a wideout or some sort of tight end. He has Trey Burton, who he's familiar with from being here in Philly. And I think defensively is where they're really underrated. I think the Colts, if they can get Wentz to play where we saw him play in like 2018, I think the Colts are a sleeper Super Bowl type of team. I think defensively they're really good. And how they built it has been through the draft. They're going to go out and make moves and improve themselves on that end. I think the front seven's pretty good, headlined by Darius Leonard, tackling machine. And he got some real good pass rushers, and the secondary is kind of getting there with Malik Hooker and Kenny Moore and Julian Blackman. Pretty good group back there. I like this team.
Well, Jeff, thanks again for the time. You're the best, and hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, always. Thanks for having me, Carter. Always appreciate it, and good luck on the show.
Hey, best of luck to you, man. Take care.
Thanks, man.